All right. Good afternoon slash evening, everybody. Welcome to ASA's Chapter Finances and Accounting Google Hangout slash training. Today I will be going over essentially what you can expect from us at ASA National when talking about chapter accounting and fundraising, and what we expect from you as chapter chairs or chapter core, and especially treasurers too. I did send out a email that had a few attachments on it. I believe there were 4 attachments earlier. So if you're watching this recorded, do go back and check the email for those 4 attachments. I will be referencing them. And I also posted a small agenda, very, very brief, just to kind of give you an idea of the flow about what we're going to talk about. For anyone that is watching live and has any questions, you can actually answer, or you can ask the questions just by putting them in the chat bar directly under the video there. And of course, we are recording this, so this should be available to everyone live. If you miss anything, you can always go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. I'll be sending around the link for that shortly after this as well. All right, so let me just double check with Talana. Everything's okay on the tech end? Broadcast is all right so far? Excellent. All right. So I will go ahead and start off with the training. It's kind of an introduction. I wanted to talk about a few things as treasurers and chairs and chapter core members. You do have a little bit of a responsibility. You've taken this leadership role, and we don't want to be too onerous with our requests of y'all, because we realize that so many of you are volunteers and doing this in your own free time. But when it comes to money and financials for the chapters, and this really only applies to the chapters, as action groups don't have the ability to set up their own fundraising and chapter accounts the same way that chapters do. But there is a little bit of a responsibility when it comes to finances specifically, and a lot of that actually has to do with our nonprofit status. So as we go through, if you feel like there's some procedures and stuff that are a little bit silly, or like, why do you need this? There is a reason for it, and I'll actually start by talking about the chapter agreements. Let me pull this up on my shared screen real quick. There we go. So this is a blank chapter agreement. All chapters have signed this as part of their chapter hoodiness. This is essentially how we issue our charter, and mostly everyone should be familiar with it if you're a chair or a treasurer or someone else on the chapter core. You can see this one's blank. I encourage you to go back and read it at any time if you haven't read it in a while. There's quite a few things in here. Obligations of association, that would be myself and us here in the ASA office. Obligations of chapter. And then there's also in here a whole section on chapter fundraising and expenditures. And as you can see, we have some things that are allocated to go back to the chapter. As part of the chapter contract, you can see membership dues, for example. All membership dues collected by us, ASA National, through the website or otherwise, 30% of that actually goes back to the chapter. And there's many, many other examples of this, which I will go down, which I will be showing you shortly. The other thing that's really cool about our chapter agreement is that once you've entered into the agreement with ASA, we actually extend our 501c4 nonprofit status as an organization to our chapters. That allows quite a few different things to occur. That allows the chapters to do some, to have some tax-exempt status, to be able to maintain a chapter account, which ASA actually maintains that account for you. There is a difference between 501c4 and 501c3 status. ASA actually has both. nonprofit certifications, both C4 and C3. The difference is ASA, Americans for Safe Access, as you would think about it, is really housed under our 501c4, which is, again, what's extended to our chapters, and it denotes a politically active organization, politically active nonprofit organization, sorry. So really when you're going into the political realm and doing not even just lobbying, but you know, political ads and campaigning, you have to be under this C4 status. You can't be a C3 nonprofit. And the difference is a C3 nonprofit really focuses on other things. In our example, ASA actually has a foundation. It's called Americans for Safe Access Foundation. That's our 501c3. And that's really our educational part of our nonprofit organization. So just again, chapters are housed under the 501c4. And if you are an active chapter, then you can get that tax-exempt status. You can use our tax ID number and such. But please always request that with me or whoever is running the chapters at the time. Happy to get you any of that tax-exempt, sales tax exemption, certificates, any of that, we have it. Very helpful also in securing locations if you're doing an event. A lot of times, you know, they'll offer tabling for nonprofits at a much lower price than they would to a commercial entity. So we have all that information here, of course. I'm going to move over to another attachment that was on the email from before, and it's my fundraising crib sheet, which is my cheat sheet. Let me switch over to my screen share again here. All right, so here was the chapter agreement, and again, it's a business-looking contract, which can be a little bit overwhelming to some people that aren't used to reading this type of stuff. So to help make this easier, I took all this fundraising stuff and put it into the chapter finances crib sheet right here. So you can see, as part of the chapter agreement, we do offer a lot of different opportunities for the chapters to gain resources from the infrastructure that Americans for Safe Access has already built out. I used the example earlier of the new memberships. You can see this right here. This is 30% of all new memberships collected by the chapter go back to the chapter. There's also 10% goes back to the chapter on literature that they sell. We'll be having our condition booklets made available, hopefully actually within the next month or so. We finally found a good printer. So any of the literature that you sell, any of the reports, our awesome Advocate's Handbook, all of that goes back to the chapter. So if you're, or 10% of that goes back to the chapter. So if you are going out and tabling, you know, you could have some of that to sell at your table. 50% of donation jar funds from chapters territory. This is really more particular to states that already have a medical cannabis program going, and they have dispensaries, and a lot of dispensaries will allow you to set an ASA donation jar in their dispensary, you know, by their register or whatever. So if you're willing to go around and collect those jars, or you know, monitor that jar program in your area, the chapter gets 50% of those donations. We have quite a few other things, trainings that you can be selling. The chapter gets 30% of that. If you have a jar at a tabling event, say you're going to the High Times Cannabis Cup in San Francisco or something, and the chapter has a booth, 70% of all donations made at that event would go back to the chapter. When a chapter has a big fundraiser, 80% of that money actually goes back to the chapter, which is awesome. And if the chapter ends up raising more than $5,000 in one calendar year, then we do ask that they also put on an annual fundraiser for Americans for Safe Access, of which 30% would go back to the chapter still. So you can see we're really trying to work with the chapters and allow them to be raising funds through a variety of different fundraising methods. while at the same time, ASA doesn't require, a lot of times chapters and other organizations will require a yearly due of like $500 to maintain their charter. And we were working really hard when we came up with our chapter program to avoid that. And so, our chapter dues are actually through ASA memberships, which is why we drive so many people through memberships, and that's also why we require 10 active chapter members to create a chapter. And so this is my crib sheet here. Definitely, use it if you're thinking about fundraising or just have any questions about that. The final thing about the accounting is that 5% of all transactions coming in will actually be an administrative cost. And that covers the cost of the financial reporting. We have to hire an accountant to do the accounting for our nonprofit. It also accounts for a lot of my time that I spend doing these chapter accounts, and I'll be explaining that in a little bit more detail later on. Also, banking fees. The banks are always ticky-tacking, monthly fee here and there. So this 5% really just accounts for our own costs of keeping up this chapter finance program and the bank accounts for the chapters. I'm going to pause right now and see if there are any questions. Talana, do we have any quite yet? Okay, no problem. No questions. Then I will move on to the actual chapter accounting. So, chapters, when you start, we actually have kind of two designations of chapter finances. We have chapters that keep a running balance of at least $500. And if you are able to maintain at least $500 in your chapter account, then we'll open a bank account physically for you through Wells Fargo under our nonprofit status. If you're a chapter that's just getting started and doesn't have at least a $500 balance thus far, we actually don't create a bank account for you yet because the cost of maintaining that bank account is actually, it's fairly significant. It's at least $10 a month in a lot of situations, and so it's just easier for chapters that are getting going and kind of building their momentum and don't necessarily have all that much money coming in and out of the chapter to just keep it without a bank account. I will say, and this is something that always comes up with the chapters that do have bank accounts in place, they'll say, oh, we just had a big chapter fundraiser, I deposited $3,000, and I went to go look at the account, and there was only $500 left in the account. Where did that money go? Well, the balance of the bank account does not actually reflect the chapter account. As a safeguard to prevent, not just theft, but inaccuracies in reporting or imprudent spending by the chapters, we actually go through every month and reduce or increase the amount in these chapter accounts accordingly. So if there was like $8,000 in the account one month, you can bet that the next month that there would only be $500 in that account. That doesn't mean you don't have access to your chapter funds, because I do keep track of that separately, which I will go into a little bit more detail on the process in just a little bit. But just to make sure the balance of the bank account does not reflect the actual balance of the chapter account. Pretty easy. Moving on, the next part I was going to talk about was this monthly reporting to ASA that everyone is going to get in the habit of doing. So reporting for a nonprofit is, financial reporting specifically for a nonprofit, is really detail-oriented and pretty onerous. We're required to keep records of pretty much everything with a paper trail, not just finances, for up to 5 years in the office. These include deposit slips, every copy of every check that comes in, every receipt, every expenditure. we have to have copies of everything. And it gets a little bit complicated when we have so many chapters out there. So I'm really, really asking for your help as chapter members and treasurers to please, please, please stay on top of these deposit slips and making copies of checks and copies of receipts. Please, if there's even a question about whether you should keep it, scan it, send it my way, and I will be happy to have an inbox full of this stuff. Because the last thing we want is for the IRS to come in, and they, you may have seen, especially in the last few years, they've had a lot of scrutiny of nonprofit organizations, and if every single I is not dotted and every single T is not crossed, then we are really susceptible to an audit, which would just be a waste of everyone's time, money, resources. No one likes a tax man. So just remember, reporting for a nonprofit is indeed very detail-oriented, and I'm sorry that this is kind of an onerous process where we will be, asking you to scan and send me all copies of everything financially related, but it is kind of the way it is. The other thing is that to actually get money out of the account, you'll have to fill out a fund disbursement request form, which I've attached to the email that I sent prior. Let me switch over and I will find it real quick. Little screen share action here. There we go. There's our fund disbursement form. So what we ask is that every time you have an expense coming up as a chapter and you have money in your account and you're all up to date with reporting with me, then the chapter can sit down and say you want to have food at your next meeting. You would fill out this fund request form at least 2 days prior to needing the money and send this to me. You can see it requires a chapter chair's signature, the treasurer's signature, basically. You email it to me. Within 2 days, I get back and I authorize it or deny it, and we figure out a way for you to get the money. If you have a chapter account, then we just transfer the money into the account, and if not, then we email you a check or transfer the money into a bank account of your choosing. There we go. There's our chapter fund disbursement request. If anyone ever needs copies of this or any of the other forms that I'm talking about, feel free to email me. I have them on hand. Let me switch back. So that's our chapter fund disbursement request. How to collect funds is a chapter. So there's a few different ways. The easiest ways are usually cash, check, or money order. If you are a chapter that doesn't have a chapter account, then we actually have accounts at Wells Fargo that you can deposit into our ASA master checking account, and we would still record that as going to the chapter. If you have your own chapter account at Wells Fargo under us, then you can just deposit it directly into that account. Again, please save your deposit slips and make copies of any checks or money orders that are coming in and send them to me, just so I know exactly what money is coming into your account, and it allows me to really just make sure that all the money that's coming to your chapter gets to your chapter and is accounted for. When you're collecting these funds, also make sure to let me know, and I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, what type of fundraising it's coming from. So if these are new memberships, if this was from a chapter fundraiser, if this was from your annual fundraiser, I have to know these things. If this was a pass the hat or a jar, this allows me to allocate the money to your chapter in a timely fashion, so that the chapter does have access to that money right away. Going back to the fund disbursement request, we talked a little bit about that. So there is another form, yes, that's right, yet another form called the Chapter Finances form. which is really your way of communicating to me every month your expenditures and what funds your chapter has raised. So this is the monthly finances form right here. And so you can see it's got a place for donation type here. That would be something like, if we go back to our crib sheet here, like for new membership, 30%. So you would say donation type, new member, amount $35, payment form, cash, date received, and then like the name of the person that was the new member. Or if this was a tabling event, you would say donation type tabling, the amount that came in, the form of the payment, date received, and then where that came from. This area that says for ASA staff only, that's just for me to use. This is the chapter expense section. So if you did fill out some fund disbursement forms and those fund disbursements were approved, this is a place where you would record that every month. You include the amount and hopefully a copy of the receipt or proof of payment invoice, something like that. You can see there's also a smaller crib sheet down here that has donation types, payment forms. This really just helps you as you're filling out the form. And then this as well is all for me to fill out. So I am requiring from now on that every chapter fill this out every month if there are finances occurring within the chapter. This really lets me have a lot more direction when I'm going through and figuring out all 20 chapters finances at the end of the month. It can get a little bit crazy because sometimes a chapter will have a chapter fundraiser coming up, and so they have a lot of expenses coming in and out. That's okay. We'll just fill out this form and keep in contact with me, and we'll figure it out. Some things though, if you don't submit the form every month and there has been stuff coming in and out, then I don't know how much money you have in the account, so I can't give you access to those funds yet. We have to keep everything current so that I know how much money you have in your account, you know how much money you have in your account, and everyone's happy. Always include all receipts, check copies, etc. I know it's just horrible, but get in the habit of making a copy of everything, scanning it, and sending it to me. There will also be another form coming out soon that's going to be an actual fundraising or event form. Because if I go back to my monthly finances form, which I seem to have deleted, hold on. There we go. So you can see it would kind of get crazy if you were doing a chapter fundraiser, right? And you had checks coming in from one place and cash coming in from ticket sales and online ticket sales. And how do we denote that all succinctly so that it doesn't clutter this all up, this page? I will be creating a page, a form very similar to this that's just for chapter events or fundraisers. And basically, this way, I don't have to process, like, oh, there was a $200 donation for a sponsorship. I don't have to go in and say, okay, well, 80% of that is actually going to the chapter. What I would rather do for events like this is have, a single form where all expenses and funds raised go into it, and there's just a net total, so that at the end I could say, okay, the chapter raised $6,000 net total after expenses on this chapter event, and I can just say, boom, 80% of that is going to the chapter. Instead of having to go through each individual like party supply receipt and everything, this will make it much simpler for everybody. And there we go. So here's another very good question. How do I know what's in my chapter account? Again, the balance, if you are a chapter that has a higher running balance, the balance of your bank account does not reflect the chapter account. Always remember. Also, I don't have access to the actual bank accounts. Because I do the financial reporting, we've made it necessary that there's a separation between me and the money because of there's always liabilities. People that are doing the accounting can very easily hide money and such. So I don't actually have access to the chapter bank accounts. So every now and then I will ask you as a treasurer or chair, whoever is the signer to the chapter bank account, to secure or just download a statement for the last 2 months or something from your chapter Wells Fargo account, just so that I can make sure that it's all evened up and that the chapter is getting the money that it's supposed to. Very important. That's really what I'm concerned with. As far as how do you know what's in your chapter account, I do accounting almost every month for the chapters. Some chapters are very busy with fundraising. Some chapters aren't as geared towards fundraising quite yet. That's okay. As of right now, I have account balances for every single chapter. I will be updating the chapter finances for August within the next month, and I'll have new balances out for everyone probably just after Labor Day, that first week of September. If you have questions about your chapter account balance at any time, please let me know. I'm very happy to help get you that number, or just figure it out with you. So essentially, let me switch over to my screen share once again. Here's an example of San Francisco's chapter accounting. Everyone has a account spreadsheet like this. You can see this is for San Francisco 2014. You can see that there's all the little months down here. So we actually go month by month. This is March 2014. This is a good example. You can see every month I go through and run a query through our membership database. And I don't know if you've noticed, but if you're joining as a new member, you can actually, there's a little pull-down menu that comes down, and you can designate what chapter you want your membership to go towards. Here are some examples. So again, every month I do a query of all our new members. These were all new members from the month of March that had designated themselves for the San Francisco chapter. Penny Correa, Daniel Hovland, Mark Goldberg, Jeremy Massey. You can see how I filled this in. M is for membership. That's the donation type. Donation percentage, 0.3. I put in the date of their new membership, the amount of their new membership, the payment form. So in this case, it's NB, which is Nation Builder. That's our online platform that hosts our website and all our database and membership stuff. So you can see these are all paid online. BMW for deposit transaction would be bank, mail, or web. You can see that these are, again, web because they came from Nation Builder. And the spreadsheet does most of the math automatically. It's not totally dummy-proof, so please, check this every month when I send it out to y'all. But you'll see that it automatically calculates exactly how much is going to the chapter. So you can see that just off of those 4 memberships, there's about $42 going back to the chapter, which is awesome. It's a little bit, but it adds up really quickly. This processing fee at the back, you can see, is that 5% that comes off of all incoming transactions. You can see not much of that is going back to ASA, but I'll show you some other pieces on this particular spreadsheet. So PD stands for special projects, essentially. And special projects can get up to, you know, 100% of the incoming donation back to the chapter. Anything that's a special project needs to come through me first for approval so that I can sign it a donation percentage. In this case, you can see they were actually special projects, but they were special donations that were coming into the chapter to help them finance travel to the conference. And you can see that these were cash, C is cash, and B was bank. So the chapter, San Francisco, has their own chapter account. They went to the bank and deposited this cash on the 13th and 14th of March. And again, you'll see how much goes back to the chapter. It's all really neat. Come down here. This was the chapter's previous balance in March. They had, you can see, almost $4,000 worth of revenue coming into the chapter. You can also see the expense right here. And I'm going to go over here. The expenses are recalled and logged right here. You can see that the chapter that month, because it was our ASA Unity Conference for 2014, they actually elected to pay for their hotel rooms out of their chapter account, along with some of their flights for the chapter members. And then San Francisco, because they were so naughty, they ended up smoking in their room at the Mayflower and got a $250 fine, which we just elected to take out of the chapter account as well. So you can see anything else would come in here that was like a fund disbursement request. You know, if you're paying for your monthly meeting space, if you're paying for food for your meetings, that would all come under here. And it automatically gets figured out over here. And so we get a total chapter balance, basically, which is this total chapter account dealy right here for every month. You can see here's January. You can see they had some new members in January. February, they had a chapter fundraiser for February 15th. That's 2/15 Medical Marijuana Week. A little bit of money was raised there. So this is what I do every month. Once I get your guys' fund or your chapter finance forms, I go through and I make sure that all the new chapter members or the new memberships that have designated their membership towards the chapter get accounted for. I make sure that all the deposits and everything we have receipts for, and then I generate this and I email it to the chapter. Typically just the chapter chair, vice chair, and treasurer. But again, if anyone needs this number, feel free to go ahead and ask me for it. I am happy to help generate it. Let me see, am I missing anything? No, I think that's it. If you send in your monthly chapter finances form, I will send you your monthly balance in this spreadsheet. It's very lovely. So let me pause again real quick and see if we have any questions still. Talana, do we have any questions? I know it's a lively group. Finances just get everyone so excited. No. All right, not seeing any. Well, in that case, I've been talking for about 40 minutes on finances, and I'm sure that everyone is bored to death. But I did want to say, you know, like in closing, this might seem like a lot of effort. It's really, really not. It's you know, almost as easy as balancing your own checkbook. I'm not asking you to do any math. All you have to do is write down the stuff into the chapter finances form, and I'll do the math for you. Please, please, please help us not get audited by the IRS. Please make copies and scan everything, and please send them my way so that I can have it for our records. And also, if you do have any other questions about finances, what it means to be a nonprofit, what 501c4 versus C3 means, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am always available and happy to answer questions. And yes, I would like to say thank you for coming to this chapter finances training. today. This will be available in just a little bit for those that missed anything or wanted to go back and check some stuff or share it with some folks that couldn't come. We'll have this up very shortly on our YouTube account. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I don't see any more questions, so I will let everyone go. Have a wonderful evening.